Well, hello everybody, how you doing? This right here is my 2006 5-speed Mazda 3. Bought it from Copart. Supposed to have been a running, driving car. Showed up without, the capability of starting. And, well, figured out the problem. Didn't take too long. As you can see, there's a window, some carnage, some busted up pieces. So, obviously not a running, driving car. I guess that's my fault for not checking it out beforehand. But to make lemonade out of lemons, well, as you can see, this doesn't look just right. Well, I did the 2.5 swap. And she runs beautiful. She runs great. It wasn't too bad. Just sourcing around, figuring out what works and what I can use and all that, and figuring out, making mistakes and fixing them. Not too many mistakes. But she's up and running now. She's running good. If you want to do this swap, well, it's actually not that bad. It's almost a direct swap out. I'd have to say, if you could get a 2.5 Mazda motor cheap enough, then you could probably do it. But most of the time, people are using the Ford motors because of the price and availability. Mazda is a lot not as cheap as Ford. That's kind of how I ran into this, because I was going to put a 2.3 in there and it was $1,100, and that kind of pissed me off because it was supposed to be running, driving. But then I know these were the same as Ford, so I started looking for Fords, and I found a 2.3 swap from a Ford to Mazda 3. Then I found a 2.5 swap, and then I found a 2.5 motor in LKQ for, well, I found a bunch of them really, various miles and various prices, but most of them were actually, pretty much all of them, I believe, even the one with 66,000 miles, were under $500. But ended up with one with 109,000 miles, and it worked out good. It's a good running motor. Paid $400 for it, including a $100 quarter, because I told the guy that I had a Mazda engine and he didn't want to take my core. So I shouldn't have said anything. They probably would have just took it back had I not. But anyways, it is what it is. $400, 109,000 miles out of a 2011 Ford Escape. It's not a bad deal. Stripped the motor down, put my timing tools on it, took the crankshaft pulley off, swapped it with the Mazda pulley, took the crankshaft position sensor off, swapped it with the Mazda position sensor, crankshaft position sensor, because it was different. The camshaft position sensor is also different, so I changed that out. What else did I change as far as the long block? Used all the Mazda accessories, so I had to change the oil pan over to use the Mazda AC compressor. Ended up cracking a little piece of that AC compressor by accident. Don't want to say why, I'm being stupid. But anyways, I got another one on 2.0 that I think should be the same, but I guess I'll find out. So as far as the long block goes, like I said, the oil pan was changed. It's got 2.3 oil pan, 2.3 crankshaft pulley, and with new crankshaft bolt. Get it from Ford, insanely cheaper, like a couple bucks cheap. As from when I called Mazda, they quoted me $77 for the both cam bolts and the crankshaft bolt. I didn't need the camshaft bolts because the camshafts were the same. maybe not the same profile since it's from an Escape, but they have the same timing gears and all that, so I didn't need to change that. All I needed to do was change over the crankshaft pulley because it had different teeth for the timing sensor, and then obviously the crankshaft position sensor was different. I think it was 2-pin versus 3-pin on the Mazda, and then it's the same thing for the camshaft position sensor. I think it had the same pins, but I think the sensor looked different. It was slightly different, so I used the Mazda camshaft sensor. Still retained the Ford VVT solenoid. Didn't change that out. Still the Ford valve cover. Mazda coils. You do have to space them underneath here because the mounting position is a little bit lower. Not a big deal. Yes, the 2.3 intake is too small and it will leak across the top. You can cut the mounting pegs off, and one guy changed the bolts and then lifted up on it and he put RTV on the top of the gaskets, and then he lifted up on the intake as he tightened it down. I'm sure that works too, but I went to the pull apart, found a 09 Mazda 6 which had a 2.5, and got the intake manifold for like 25 bucks or something like that. Really cheap compared to the $200+ everybody on eBay wanted. Throttle body was missing, so I drove up the road to LKQ full service, got it for 42 bucks and change. And they bolt on. Obviously the routing for the solenoids are a little bit different. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention when I pulled the intake manifold off where those vacuum lines went to, if there was something on there I could have used. But as you can see, I just mounted these right here, which I'm going to have to move if I want to use my upper cover, because this is the mounting pegs for the cover here that says Mazda. And so I'll have to move these to a different location if I'm going to use them. But I did retain these and I did route them back down, so the whole runner control, everything is working good. You'll notice the newer intake manifold has a position sensor right here. It does not get used. There's no connector in the Mazda harness for it. This is the whole Mazda 3 harness and injectors being used here. I know people say they use the 2.5 injectors because it's a bigger motor, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's great and all, but if you don't tune it, then the computer doesn't know the injector sizing, and it doesn't know the latency table, and it is using what it knows is 2.3 size and latency table for 2.5 injectors, and that's not going to work. It's going to run rich pretty much across the board. Maybe at idle it might be okay, but the ECU still doesn't know that those are in there. It still thinks it's got 2.3 motor and injectors. So definitely don't use the 2.5 unless you plan on getting, a tune, because there's no way for that ECU to know that you got 2.5 injectors in there, and they're larger, and I'm sure the latency is probably a little bit different too, and it's not programmed for that. So 2.3 injectors, or get a tune and use the 2.5. What else? Still the factory airbox and everything, that fits right on the throttle body. I did retain the Ford knock sensor that came on the Ford motor. No codes, no issues. This thing runs with no codes, no issues. Everything works fine. And side note, if you want to have a little bit of fun and notice something a little weird, hook up your runner controls backwards and then run it out in first gear and wait for it. About 5,500 RPM, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like your 1.6 Honda motor just turned into a 2.5 Mazda motor with VTEC. It's really weird and fun. But obviously I got them mixed up at first. Just swap the plugs around. They're the same plugs. You don't have to reroute your vacuum lines. Just swap the solenoids plugs over. Same solenoid, same plugs. After that it ran great. Strong through all the gears all the way up to the red line. So it's a pretty good motor. Obviously it came out of Escape. Now it's in a little Mazda 3. It weighs a little bit less, and it's pretty fun to drive around. What else can I think of that I had to change? I think that's pretty much it as far as swapping over. So basically retained the whole Mazda wiring harness, Mazda 3 2.3 injectors. They do not run rich. They run slightly lean at idle, not enough to turn the check engine light on. And, you know, that may have just been how the car ran before. I don't know. You know, if it's within 10%, it doesn't throw a check engine light, so that's really a non-issue. And judging by the mass airflow grams per second, which was about 2.5 grams per second, sometimes a little bit lower, at idle, it's really not flowing that much more air, to be honest. I mean, 2.3, 2.5, it's not a big difference in engine size. It is a good bit of stroke, which you see throughout the power range, and not really so much at idle. I don't see you being a big difference, you know, going down the road at cruise either. The only difference that these injectors are going to make really is at max throttle, and they don't build the cars to be, you know, maxed out injectors when it's going down the road at wide open throttle. That's not how they build cars. They don't build them with injector IDC at full throttle being 100%. So you still got, I'm sure you still got injectors left over. I don't have a way to check the injector duty cycle while I'm driving down the road at full throttle, but I know at idle I had long-term trim at like around 9% steady, and going down the road short-term stayed pretty much around 0. So cruising idle, it was doing pretty good. Didn't really notice much hesitation up top either. No, I haven't really cruised a lot with it yet, so I don't know. One guy said something about idle surge. I haven't, or throttle surge. I haven't noticed that yet either. But definitely retain your Mazda 3 injectors, because your computer knows and can control them. And it doesn't matter about the engine size, because if it flows a little more air, the mass airflow picks it up. The mass airflow is still reading air. So if it flows a little more air, the computer knows it, and it's going to adjust for it with injectors that it knows to use. So don't put the 2.5 injectors in there unless you plan on getting a tune. And if you plan on getting a tune, you might as well just get aftermarket injectors or something anyways, instead of going to get some 100,000 mile used injectors from, you know, who knows where. So yeah, retain your Mazda wiring harness, retain your Mazda coils, retain your Mazda 3 injectors, your Mazda 3 intake runner control solenoids, and just plug them back in and route them like they were before, and they'll work. Your whole intake runner control will work. You can use either the Ford or the Mazda valve cover. Obviously I used the Ford because it looked better. It was a lot cleaner, and the old one was really nasty and dirty, and I didn't really want to use it. Use the Mazda cam sensor, use the Mazda crankshaft sensor, use the Mazda crankshaft pulley, use the timing tools. Don't get it fucked up, because as soon as you break that thing loose, if there's any stress on it, that chain's going to move, and it'll probably move when you put it back together too, and you're trying to put 250 foot-pounds on that crankshaft bolt, which is not dead set up 250 foot-pounds. By the book, you torque it down, I believe it was 74 foot-pounds, and then 90 degrees, which for me, on my snap-on wrench, ended up at 246 point something foot-pounds. So it's close to 250, but that's not the procedure. The procedure is 74 and 90 degrees. Like I said, use a tool, the flat bar in the back. If it doesn't fit, then you're 180 out, and then you turn the motor over 180, and that flat bar will go in for the camshafts. And then there's a little bolt on the back of the block that you unscrew, and the timing tool goes in there to hold it still. Also, in the crankshaft pulley, you'll notice there's a hole that goes through and threads into the timing cover. You can put a bolt in there, and that holds that pulley still and aligns it. And then I used let me see if I can find it right quick. I also used, it's like a vice grip with a chain on it. You might know what I'm talking about. Not sure whether they put it, or if they put it back, or if I didn't put it back. But I'm sure you can search and find it. But it's basically like a pair of vice grips with a chain on it that you can wrap around the pulley and clamp it down. And I also used it, I had it on a engine pallet when I did it, so I just basically clamped it down, put it against the pallet, and then clamped it down, and the direction that I was going to torque it down, so it would prevent the crankshaft from moving as well. So all the tools in it, and that vice grip with a chain on the crankshaft pulley itself clamped down, and I was able to, I also put a a wrench on the camshaft. It takes a 24mm wrench. So I had a wrench on the camshaft as well as all these other factors holding the cam still, and then torqued it down. It held everything still. I have no check engine lights. I have no timing codes. I have no codes of any kind. Everything is working perfectly. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and this pulley right here, water pump pulley, that came from the Mazda motor as well. Use that. Still the Mazda, obviously, alternator and all these other accessory pieces. The Mazda intake manifold gets reused. All, you know, so that's pretty much it. That's all you need. So it's pretty basic. Yeah, if you didn't follow me through this, you know, I'll obviously add in text form in the comment section, or in the description section actually, all the stuff that you need to change and don't change. But everything's good, working good. Car runs great. Car feels strong. It's really fun to drive. It's definitely a great swap. Definitely much cheaper. As you can see, no idle swerve, nothing. She's running good. And as you can see, there's no warning lights of any kind, no check engine light. It feels smooth, it runs smooth. Drives great. Oh, really, this is a great upgrade for this car. So, and I'm pretty much done with it now. I just put new synthetic transmission oil in it and stuff. All I gotta do really is find a new place for these, so I can set my Mazda cover back down on it, and then I'm done. As long as, you know, I don't have any leaks or anything. So, but everything looks pretty good. This is pretty much it. Can't think of anything else really that you need to do. You know, I put a new clutch in it. You know, used the Mazda 3 flywheel. Bought a new clutch for a Mazda 3 2.3, obviously. You know, it all bolts into the crank and everything great. There's a 3-step process for cranking down those flywheel bolts, which I believe I also used the crank holding tool in the back, the bolt that goes through the pulley, and those chain vice grips to hold it while I did that too. And there's a 3-step process. I think it's like, I want to say like 24, 59, and then 83 foot-pounds. You know, obviously in the crisscross applesauce pattern. You know, and then I can't remember the bolt torque for the pressure plate right now. I think it was 20 something, but I'll also add that in the comment section too. But yeah, so this is a 2006 Mazda 3 with a 2.5 Ford Escape motor and a 2.5 Mazda 6 2009 intake manifold and a 2013 Mazda 6 2.5 throttle body, and everything's running great. If you have any questions, just let me know. If you have anything else you want to know about this, or any questions on any other swaps, just put your comments in the comment section, obviously. And then you know, obviously, as you can see, this is what I do for a living. I'm a mechanic. This one actually I'm fixing up to sell, but you know, I work on cars for a living. My brother's doing this Ford Fusion over here. I got another Mazda, 2 other Mazda 3s 2.0s that I'm working on. But you know, if you got any questions about anything else, or if you're interested in me doing some other swaps or something like that on, you know, maybe a Honda D-Series swap or something, since I have 95 D-Series at home that with a V18 waiting to go in. I'm not sure when I'll ever do that, but I do a lot of DSMs too, a lot of turbo Mitsubishis, 3000 GTs, Evos. So really, do a wide variety of stuff. So if you got any questions, just holler. If I don't know, I'll probably figure it out. If I can't figure it out, I can point you in the right direction. But this is Jacob Mercer, DSM Revival, Diamond Star Motor Works, EM Auto, my brother's shop that we run together for repair services. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and just let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.